line. There's a lot of running room for those boys to run over at San Francisco, and a lot of that is a tip of the cap to that O-line play and then the blocking schemes that they've put together with their offensive line coach. So lots of green. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey, late scratch. He was a gamble. Many people, in terms of the fantasy football world, he was the first-round pick for a lot of those fantasy football teams. So certainly some concern if you're a Christian McCaffrey owner. But it's also the risk you take when you take a Christian McCaffrey, because looking at the longevity of his career, really, other than last year, putting together a full season has been a challenge for him. Yes, when he's on the field, he's electric, explosive, and he gets you a lot of points, circa plus 25 a game, but he has health issues and has had them in the past, so obviously some concern right now in San Francisco, but Dabo looks good. The rest of the squad look. I've always been a Brock guy. Always been a Brock guy when he was in at the quarterback position. Just a humble, nonchalant, not a big showboat. So, yeah, I look for San Francisco to do some big things this year in the NFC. Last night wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination, but they got the job done.
All right, we've got the Huskers playing a FCS opponent this week. Everybody's saying, what? FCS opponent? What's that? Well, that's the kind of the second tier of college football. This team we're playing is 2-0 in this season. They beat St. Thomas of Minnesota last week by a score of 17-10. So we're kind of taking a step down, but I think that's all right. Coming off of the Colorado game on Saturday, I think it's all right to play an FCS opponent. We don't play a lot of these, but this is the second one we played this year, but we don't play a lot of these normally. So no. It's kind of another tune-up for the Big Ten, I guess.
And hopefully we treat it like a tune-up, and not we're playing an FCS school after coming off the big win. You hope that you don't have the hangover from the victory over against Colorado, as being told by IT that we are live on Facebook and YouTube, so hello to all of our new viewers out there, talking about Nebraska's next opponent in Northern Iowa. And historically, Mike, looking back at these FCS schools, these are not schools that we have had a ton of success in terms of just blowing them out of the water that you would expect in a tune-up game, and expect to when you collide a Power 5 school going up against a FCS school. You remember McNeese State a few years ago. That's one that rings a bell, where Amir Abdullah had to save us in the backfield with that last-minute touchdown just to beat McNeese State. South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, they've had us on the ropes a couple different times where they come in. So these FCS schools, they come in and everybody thinks, they're just here to collect a paycheck, and they show up. You got to remember, when Northern Iowa gets the opportunity to play against Nebraska, just like Appalachian State when they played in Michigan in the Big House, this is their Super Bowl. This is a tune-up game for us. This is essentially nothing more than a jog-through of a practice, and you're playing against 11 guys that are playing for a championship in their minds, in their hearts. So got to be careful about this one. I'm not saying it's a trap game by any stretch. I think that we are too good of a coaching staff to have this be a trap game. But you got to get the players right. You got to get the players right mentally to go out there and just execute and get a W. I think that they can get it done. But these games have tripped up some college football teams, including Nebraska, in the past.
All right, Matt Rule was before reporters again yesterday in Lincoln. He says execution on offense has to get better for the Huskers.
The story offensively, very simply, is this. We are going out the first two drives, we're going down and scoring touchdowns, okay? We're playing great in the 2-minute. 2 weeks in a row we go down and score in the 2-minute. We can do more and do better. If like we throw a bubble screen out there and we just get hit in the legs, right? Their receivers blocked us. So I think our receivers have to have a better week blocking. We had 8 penalties on offense, and not the penalty yards. I think the penalty yards was like 50 some, but the yards lost was like 160 and a touchdown. So that could have been a 45, 50 point game. Now when I coach, I'm not coaching worrying about what's Robin going to give the offensive grade this week and the defense. I just want to win the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not worried about that, but I want execution, and I didn't like the execution by some people. I thought Dylan executed the whole game. I thought some guys executed the whole game, but I did not like some of the execution, and one of those was the perimeter blocking. I think it could be way better, and it was way better at times last year, way better last week. This wasn't the best week we've had.
And the coach says the team's facing a lot of challenges this week, despite playing an FCS opponent.
For me, it's making the same improvement this week that we made last week. The defense felt the urgency of the skill and the speed because they got burned on it last year. Well, now you're facing the number 4 rushing offense in FCS. You're facing 298 yards a game, and you're facing a coach Farley who's won a ton of games, and so. A Northern Iowa program. Like when I was in the NFL, I looked at Northern Iowa linemen. I never looked at a Nebraska lineman. So and then Cam obviously was a great player, but I never had that opportunity to see him. But so I mean, you better be ready for a physical battle with the way that they play, run defense and run offense. So that's one of the challenges, and then fixing these problems that we're having. Fixing the special teams. We've won the turnover battle 2 games in a row. It's the number one thing that I care about. I felt like we were the more physical team on Saturday. We did not have the execution at the level I wanted it to, so got to keep improving that.
And you always got to be concerned about emotional fatigue after playing a game against a team such as Colorado last week.
Let me say, I'm concerned about everything all the time. I think you guys know me by now, right? But if you want to play championship football, you're just like this. You got to be like this, right? And so that's why I don't get too high, I don't get too low. I don't, I'll return people's texts when they text me about the game, but I'm not like, it wasn't the highlight of the year for me, right? It wasn't vindication. It wasn't anything. It was a game that we played 1-0 that I expected the game to go that way. I expected us to score 40 points in that game and hold them to about 10. Like that was my prediction, going into it. I thought that's where the game was, and that's no disrespect to them. I think they're a really good team. I just felt like we matched up well against that team. So we have to improve because there's other teams that we're playing, like this type of team that we're playing this week, this physical. How are we going to match up against those teams? We played 2 spread teams. Now it changes. And how do we match up against teams that want to run the ball like we want to run the ball? How do you match up against teams that want to play physical defense and play special teams? And so, we'll accelerate right through the fatigue. And I think the guys feel the pressure of we didn't play very well on special teams, and we had way too many penalties, especially on off in the second. Dante hit that run on the second drive of the game, I think, or third drive of the game, to down to the 4-yard line. It should be it's another touchdown drive. It's 35-0 at the half, and Ben-Hur has the hold, right? And that ball comes back, and we end up not scoring on that drive. There's too much of that stuff happening, and so we've got to get a lot better.
That's Husker head coach Matt Rule as he met with reporters yesterday in Lincoln. Going to hear from the coordinators in a media session later on this morning. So not happy yet. Picked up a win over Colorado. They're 2-0, but there's still stuff to fix.
Happy, just not yet satisfied with what he's seen from the boys is kind of the feel that I got with. I mean, knows there's more to give, knows there's still more juice to squeeze, if you will, out of this Husker football team to get them to performing at their best level. And if you bring that kind of intensity, I mean, you get one of the bigger wins that you've had in program history, and you're not satisfied with your level of play. That week in practice is gonna be reflecting on that. So with that attitude and that mentality, man, look out for Northern Iowa. Because they're gonna be drilled hard in practice this week. There's no doubt about it. They're gonna get to the execution level that Matt Rule wants to see before they step on the field against the Panthers. So I just love to see that fact. I mean, you're not sitting there taking and telling the boys to go celebrate. Some of the great coaches that we've had the opportunity to talk to always talk about the 24-hour rule, where you go and you pick up your enjoyment and you enjoy the win, and then you got to get back to work. And obviously, Rule, as he took a look at the tape, not happy with the work that's been put in yet, and wants to see more out of the Skurs. So continue to go forward.
He talked yesterday. We're playing winning football right now. We're not playing championship football, and there's a difference. Winning football and championship football, and he's going to try to get it to the next level, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can, because oh, by the way, we have some big games coming up.
Just a few coming up on the schedule here as we get set to get into conference play. So. I'm anxious, man. I continually want to see this team take that next stride. I don't want last week to be the highlight of the season, and I think there's a lot of people that are jumping back on that Husker bandwagon that haven't been there in a very long time, but that have jumped back into immediately, hey, we're going undefeated and going to win that national championship, going to get ourselves into the playoffs. And I'm still along the lines of, man, I've seen us take so many steps backwards before. You don't want to see that again. Continue to make those strides. And everything that I hear, Coach Rule is backed up on. We've had so many coaches that have come through this program over the last several years that have talked the talk but have not been able to back it up. And so far, what I've been really most impressed with Matt Rule here in year 2, everything he says is backed up on the field the following week on Saturday. And he has done a tremendous job at that. So kudos to him. Again, not playing championship football. He knows the difference. We know there's a difference, having been a part of that, having seen what championship football looks like versus just being a pretty good team that hovers around 8-9 wins a season. We know what that feels like, so we know we need to take that next step as a program. God, I hope he can get it done.
I'll take 8 or 9 wins.
I'll take a stride in the right direction, right? It's a stride in the right direction.
Anyway, 6:30 will be the kickoff on Saturday in Lincoln. You'll be able to see it on BTN. Maybe not the same hype and excitement. We hope so in the stadium on Saturday, but naturally you're playing Northern Iowa instead of Colorado this week. So
the hype's going to always be there from the fan base standpoint because of the experience that UNL has done. The university with the third quarter light show, just everything that the night game atmosphere adds. They'll bring it again because they want to bring it, because they know now that they've seen the results. When you bring that fan base, you bring that passion, you bring that intensity. I had several people on Facebook that said they didn't sit the entire game against Colorado, and you pick up a victory like that where you're having the opposing quarterback put his hands around his the ear holes just so we can hear the coaching staff. They get louder and louder, so the intensity is going to be there from the fan standpoint. Might be one where they check out a little bit early in the second half and maybe head down to the brew pubs around the Haymarket area because the game's well in hand. But I expect a good first half of crowd of the Sea Red.
A lot of people did not sit in the stadium last week. I'm thinking of Johnny Joe, who's the white-haired 97-year-old guy who has had season tickets for Nebraska for like 52 years in a family. And Johnny is sitting there, and all of a sudden you got everybody in front of him standing up, and the white-haired guy with his cane in his right hand. Hey, Sonny boy! Sonny boy! Sit your butt down, would you?
Poke. Poke. Wouldn't that be tickets that you just kind of sell and let the youngins go to?
I can just imagine. I'm sure there were some instances in the stadiums that probably happened last week.
Would you be able to even hear Johnny Joe last week? As loud as that stadium got, even if you were a row in front of me, unless you're poking me with your cane, I wouldn't have been able to hear. I can't hear anyways, let alone when the decibel level gets to the point it was. But I'm sure you're right. I'm sure there was some instances, and that's all part of it. But that nighttime atmosphere in Colorado, that had to have been entirely. You had season tickets for the last 50 years, and you saw that atmosphere at a game against Colorado versus games that you went to against Colorado back the day after Thanksgiving in the old Big 8 days. There was probably a dramatic, noticeable difference in the atmosphere for old Johnny Joe.
Oh, Johnny Joe don't remember that, though. Johnny Joe, he can't remember yesterday, not alone the Big 8 days.
He was standing up. He was having a great time. Johnny was just fine.
Let's see, what else did I need to get to here in this first half hour? I mentioned National TV Dinner Day.
Yeah.
It's also a World Suicide Prevention Day. That's a good day. And it's National Ants on a Log Day today. So as you head out the door, where do they come up with these? I think we got into this discussion back in our previous morning show. Where do they come up with some of this crap that we put on the social calendar each and every day?
Just some random guy that sits in a boardroom, and I'm just envisioning this boardroom of national holidays. It's got to be a government job, right? And this board of national holidays just sits and, all right, what else can we come up with? Well, I saw some ants on a log today driving in from Saskatchewan. Ants on a log day it is. Ants on a log day. It's better than ants in my pants day, though.
Yeah,
would much rather have ants on a log than ants in my pants.
All right, September the 10th, by the way, if you're heading out the door this morning, 7:34. You mentioned the volleyball game tonight. Boy, this is a big one. The Huskers have never lost to Creighton in volleyball. They're 22-0 all time against the Blue Jays. The Huskers have a 27 home match winning streak dating back to 2022. But Nebraska and Creighton will be playing. First time that the two teams have been nationally ranked in the top 10 when they face off against each other. Nebraska number 5, Creighton is number 9. You'll be able to see it tonight on the Big Ten Network. But the Huskers, another big volleyball match here before they get ready to head into their conference season in volleyball, where they're going to see a ton of ranked teams. But obviously this is a big one, the Huskers and the Blue Jays tonight.
This is it's a big one, and this is that game match, Mike, where you look back a couple matches ago against SMU, and yeah, SMU is going to be a good volleyball school, and there's no doubt about that, and they came ready to play, and they were itching for a fight. But this one particularly, if you're John Cook, you got to limit errors. You can't give Creighton extra opportunities tonight to get into the match, to maybe get some momentum. You have to be clinical in terms of execution on the court. The atmosphere obviously is going to be extremely intense. Even though it's a midweek matchup, it's Nebraska-Creighton, and I don't care if it's baseball, I don't care if it's soccer, I don't care what sport you put Nebraska and Creighton onto. Obviously, the basketball side of things, everything gets amped up over there at the PBA. But I'm expecting a big atmosphere tonight. But again, this is one of those where if we take care of ourselves, you look at this matchup on paper and you look at what both sides are bringing to the table. I think on paper, Nebraska is probably the better team, but we got to take care of business. Top 10 matchup, that's huge, and it's huge for the state of Nebraska. It's huge for how far this area has come for volleyball, because not only has Nebraska become an absolute dynasty and a powerhouse in terms of college volleyball, everybody around us is getting better. And I said the same thing with Alex Allard a week ago when looking at back at Volleyball Day in Nebraska. And what that has done. And you look at the success that UNO has had, that UNK has had, and that's been reflecting on the GPAC as well. GPAC is the who's who. It's the creme de la creme. It's the SEC of the Division I college football in terms of volleyball. And it's all these schools right here in Nebraska that are bringing up the product of the conference. So the Division I play and the success that Nebraska has seen has boosted the state's volleyball as a whole. So I love the fact that this is the first time that these two teams are in the top 10, because that means all the programs across the state are going in the right direction.
All right, again, 7 o'clock starting time for the Huskers and the Blue Jays tonight on the Big Ten Network. So those are just some of the things that are going on throughout the state of Nebraska. Again, football last night, if you missed that, it was the 49ers over the Jets by the score of 32-19. I'm starting to work on my Blazing 5 picks for later on in the week. You got to get started on that early in the week is what they tell me.
Listen, when you go 1-4 in your opening week, when you go 1-4, you got to start prepping early. You got to take a look at yourself in the mirror and realize, we made a few mistakes this week, and so I'm with you. I jotted down about 17 possible different games. We'll start to work our way down from our 17 original picks to finally get down to the Blazing 5 on Friday. That has become what's going to be our favorite segment on the show, with no doubt. The work that IT put together on the intro music, plus that segment got a lot of hype when we first rolled that out. So I don't know if it was the hype for the self-made sound effects that really generated the buzz, or just the horribleness of our picks, but it's going to be a fun segment.
No, your picks.
My picks. Our picks. Collectively. If you combined both of our picks, I only brought one to the table, so collectively as a combined unit, we didn't do very good either, because I did so bad on my own.
Well, we're not a team.
I sunk the entire average.
No, we're
not.
We're not a team when it comes to the Blazing 5. It's your Blazing 5 and my Blazing 5. I had a winning week. I was 3-2 last week. Not what I anticipated, and I got to look myself in the mirror. I got to take myself to the championship level of predicting games, and I didn't get the job done. I didn't execute.
Didn't execute the game plan, and you can't really say it's a winning week when you go 3-2, but the Blazing Five is getting 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. You line up across that slot machine, you get them all right. So second place is just the first loser, right? It's not a winning week. You lost 2. We're both losers. Admit it. We're both losers.
Get in front of the mirror when we get done with this show and tell yourself, I am a loser.
I cannot wait for the people that just tuned in that have no idea. They're literally scrolling Facebook right now, and they immediately tune into, I'm a loser.
That's all right.
That's what's great advertising for this program.
Well, since we're on so many different facets now, maybe we should introduce ourselves again.
There you go.
Yeah, you're listening to Mike and Tyson. It's Huddle Up on Extreme Sports. Tyson and I, we worked together many moons ago at a broadcast facility in Hastings, and now we're back together, and we are so excited to be back in the morning radio, so to speak, talk show format here. We can talk anything that we want. Before, we couldn't do that.
We can talk anything under the sun. We already have on the show. We've introduced an element of expanded gaming that was previously off limits. We've gone off the rails at times or two, talking about grilling versus charcoal versus propane. Anything we want on the show, and it's great freedom, and it's great opportunity. Again, I just jumped on it. This was something where you introduced to me in the summer a year ago, and I said, okay, well, that sounds kind of fun. Maybe let's see how you guys get up and running first before I make a determination on what I'm going to do with my future. And it didn't take me very long. I think within 3 months, you guys were rolling over there at Extreme Sports, doing everything that you had said you're going to do, and with much more plans. And I said, I got to be a part of that. That just looks like way too much fun. And it's been a challenge, but it's also been very rewarding. You just flash back to last week, talk about the challenges that we had on the show, and I didn't know if we would ever get Huddle Up and running after our debut show, but we took it as a challenge. We took it as an opportunity to figure out what went wrong, go back to the drawing board. I tell my broadcast students over at CCC that if you don't know me, if you know Mike Will really well, I come from the CCC ranks. I teach broadcast podcast classes out there. I got to use last week as an opportunity to talk to the students about real-world experience and say, if at first you don't succeed, keep pressing buttons until something works. And that's essentially what we did for show number 2. And now look, all the different areas, all the different facets and social media platforms that we're on. And we've added something new to this show every single morning, whether that's a Blazing 5 segment with a brand new segment, whether that's with the addition of some new and improved better cameras, whether that's with the addition of letting me go hands-free and being able to navigate around my studio a little bit better thanks to some extra equipment and some new toys, to just being up on Facebook, being up on Roku, having video streaming on YouTube, and being able to share and like our podcasts. And pretty soon we're going to get to the point where we can read those comments out on the Facebook page, and they pop up, and we can interact with our audience and have an interactive morning show. Something new each and every day, and we look at it as not a challenge, but an opportunity to grow, and it's really improved our brand. And it's just so exciting that this morning show is everything that we thought it was going to be, and it's only going to get better. Only going to get better with some more improvements, and as we get into a rhythm, so to speak, within our first several shows, we're going to have more people join us in the mornings. Third people a part of the conversation, finding out about what interesting things are going on around our community and in our lives, and just meeting interesting people in general. Like, one of the people that I really want to talk to on this show is the guy that's growing the brand over with cross country. And you say cross-country sport, well, it's not something we can really cover from the extreme side of things. It's not something you can quite do play-by-play because, for the most part, they're in the middle of the open fields. You got this guy, Jay, who's started this prep running nerd over on social media. He has got an army of parents that have joined in his effort to get these kids some exposure and to get these kids some coverage. I think that's fantastic, not only for the sport, but for those kids as well. He's a guy that I wanted to just bring into and pick his brain and, like, how did you start this? And you get this idea. So that's on the table. We got, of course, in the political season, we're going to have some politicians that we bring on and not just talk about their campaign platform, but get to know them as a person, get to know them as an individual, and what drives them, and what their passions are. So those are the kind of styles of interviews that you're going to anticipate here on the show, here on Huddle Up. And again, much bigger plans in the future as we continue to grow. And I'll tip of the cap to you, Mike, over as captain of the ship here with the Extreme Sports team. But you've assembled a pretty dang good crew around you, from your bookkeeper over the way to the IT guy to our sales staff, and Jimmy and Gino. It's been a fun crew to be a part of, and it's a blast from the past. And only this time we get to say what goes, and that's the difference. It's the same. You and I are the same person that we were 11 years ago. I don't think we've changed very much. This time we get to be the determining factor of what we say and what goes on, and I think that's going to lead to a better product, because I think the one thing that I've always said about me and you is we know how to do it right. We've done it right. We've done it right before. And we're going to do it right here. We're going to do it right here on Extreme Sports on Huddle Up.
Hey.
Would you like my sales pitch?
Yeah, that was a very good sales pitch, my man.
I'm gonna save that and just take that to a couple of different advertisers this afternoon.
All right, it's 7:46 as you get out the door this morning. Again, you're listening to Huddle Up on Extreme Sports.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Deborah Rodriguez. The first presidential debate featuring Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is set for tonight in Philadelphia. Correspondent Jared Hill is there.
The vice president has spent the past few days doing mock debates, practicing on a stage with lights, and sparring with a Trump stand-in, former Hillary Clinton aide Felipe Reyes, who even dressed like the former president. Trump has said he doesn't need formal preparation, but he has been doing policy sessions with a small team of advisors, among them former Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard.
It'll be the first time the candidates meet in person. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry's declared a state of emergency as Tropical Storm Francine picks up steam in the Gulf of Mexico. CBS meteorologist David Parkinson.
Tropical Storm Francine continues to get stronger as it moves closer to a landfall. Landfall likely to take place on Wednesday afternoon as a Category 2 hurricane in Louisiana near Vermilion Bay.
After the system moves inland, it's expected to spread heavy rain over parts of the deep south. Amounts could reach up to 10 inches in Louisiana. Thousands of people have been forced from their homes in Southern California, where triple-digit heat is fueling the flames of wildfires. The worst one is raging east of L.A., in the foothills of the San Bernardino Mountains. County Fire Chief Anthony Marone.
Your local firefighters are doing all they can, both in the air and on the ground, and will quickly mobilize to contain wildfires early before they become unmanageable.
After several delays, billionaire tech entrepreneur Jared Isaacman and 3 others blasted off from Cape Canaveral on a SpaceX rocket today in hopes of conducting the first ever spacewalk by private citizens.
We wouldn't be on this journey without all 14,000 of you back at SpaceX and everyone else cheering us on. We appreciate it, and we're going to get to work now.
Palestinian officials say at least 19 people have been killed in an Israeli airstrike in southern Gaza. Reporter Linda Gradstein from Jerusalem.
Palestinians say the strike hit an area that Israel has designated as a safe zone, blasted large craters into the ground where tents sheltering displaced Gazans previously stood.
Israel says the attack targeted and killed 3 Hamas commanders. The Australian government wants to set a minimum age as old as 16 to use social media platforms like TikTok. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese.
I want them to have real experiences with real people.
He says he also wants to keep kids safe. Dow Futures down 11. This is CBS News.
It's time for a morning news update on Extreme Sports.
Well, scary sights, but thankfully everyone is safe after two people were taken to the hospital after a crash involving a school bus in Grand Island. The accident occurring around 2:30 yesterday afternoon at the intersection of North Park Avenue and Cottage Street near Grand Island Senior High. A vehicle traveling eastbound on Cottage Street collided with a small mini school bus traveling northbound on Park Avenue, putting the bus onto its side. Two of the bus employees were taken to the hospital for minor injuries. The bus did have the right-of-way at the intersection, so the driver of the vehicle was cited for failure to yield. The Nebraska Supreme Court has begun hearing arguments on abortion ballot measures as lawyers went before the Supreme Court yesterday, explaining that a ballot initiative aiming to expand abortion rights until fetal viability shouldn't be allowed to go before voters in November's election. The argument, because they felt that the abortion rights proposal violated the Constitution by combining different subjects. The justices will have to make a call soon, as the Secretary of State must certify November's ballot by Friday. Staying in the courts, jury selection is underway in the trial of a Nebraska man accused of a quadruple homicide that took place in Laurel, a small Nebraska community of about 900 people. Jason Jones has been found is guilty on 4 charges of first-degree murder, 2 charges of first-degree arson, and 4 charges of use of a firearm to commit a felony. The incident took place in August of 2022 when Jones was arrested in connection with the deaths of 4 of his neighbors. The two homes where the victims lived were each set on fire. Jones has pled not guilty to all 10 charges. And over in Grand Island, the Heartland United Way food drive will take place this week at Husker Harvest Days, as FFA students will receive free entry into the event with a minimum donation of 5 non-perishable food items. Food donations will remain in Hall, Hamilton, Howard, and Merritt counties to provide food for local families in need throughout the year at the local food pantries, backpack programs, and shelters. Last year, 112 FFA chapters participated in the food drive to collect a total of 15,100 pounds of food. Over to Mike Will for the sports.
The Nebraska football team preparing to take on Northern Iowa this Saturday at Memorial Stadium. The Huskers 2-0 in the season after Saturday's 28-10 win over Colorado. The Panthers compete in the FCS. They are 2-0 in the season after a 17-10 victory over St. Thomas of Minnesota. Kickoff will be at 6:30. You'll be able to see it on BTN. Top recruit in the state of Nebraska for 2025 is committed to the Huskers. Christian Jones is a 4-star linebacker out of Omaha West Side. Last season he had 69 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, and scored 2 defensive touchdowns. On offense, he had 20 receptions for 500 yards and 9 touchdowns. The Nebraska volleyball team is ranked number 5 in this week's AVCA coaches poll. Huskers are 5-1 in the season. Pittsburgh is ranked number 1, followed by Stanford, Penn State, Louisville, and Nebraska. Rounding out the top 10 are Texas, Purdue, Wisconsin, Creighton, and Kentucky. Nebraska will battle Creighton tonight at the Bob Devaney Sports Center. Blue Jays are 5-0 in the season after wins over Omaha and Kansas State last week. Nebraska is 22-0 all-time against the Blue Jays. Huskers have won 27 home matches in a row, dating back to November 26th of 2022. First serve will be at 7. It'll be televised on the Big Ten Network. Defending national champion Kaiser of Florida is ranked number 1 in this week's NAIA college football poll. Northwestern of Iowa is ranked number 2. Dordt is 12th, and Morningside is 14th. High school softball from last night. Northwest still undefeated on the season. The Vikings beat Kearney Catholic last night 10-2. Northwest is now 13-0. Today, Hastings, Iowa hosts Lincoln Northwest. The Tigers are 10-2. St. Cecilia will host North Platte. The Hawkettes are 8-2. At Highway 6, the Adams Central Softball Cooperative will host a triangular with Central Catholic and Hershey today. Highway 6 is currently 7-4. High school volleyball tonight. Adams Central will play at St. Cecilia. Patriots are 4-1 in the season. The Hawkettes are 3-1. Major League Baseball from yesterday. The Yankees beat the Royals 10-4. Same two teams will play at 6:05 tonight. NFL football last night. San Francisco over the Jets by the score of 32-19.
It's time for a morning weather update on Extreme Sports with Chief Meteorologist Tim Jones.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Jones with Nebraska Community TV. A hot day today, a high of 92 degrees. This morning, we could have a chance of a rogue shower or thunderstorm, especially north of Interstate 80. Breezy conditions with the south wind around 15. We'll see some gusts in the mid-20s as well. Overnight tonight, mostly clear, a low of 60 degrees. Wednesday, plenty of sunshine, a high close to 90. And Thursday, keeping it warm, a high of 85 with plenty of sunshine. That's a check your forecast. Have a great day.
Right now, the wind's blowing out of the south-southwest at 12, gusting to 24. We've got some clouds around this morning. Tim stands at 65 in Hastings at Extreme Sports, 7:55. High school football coming up this week. As far as the Hastings teams are concerned, Hastings High has a tough one. They're on the road playing at Bennington. Kearney Catholic is going to be in town to take on St. Cecilia. Gothenburg will be out at Adams Central to take on the Patriots as AC looks to get off the schneid. Well, it's been a while since the Patriots have started the season 0-2.
Well, I think I was reading the paper. Was it 2015? Was that right?
I think so, 2015 or 2016, somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a while. So we'll see what AC can do against Gothenburg. That'll be our game of the week this week on Extreme Sports. And over on Extreme Sports 2 this week, you'll have a good matchup again as we continue our circle of the 8-man ranks here. You'll be in Kennesaw for BDS up against the Blue Devils of Kennesaw. Again, that game will air Friday night on Extreme Sports 2.
Yeah, this is a fun one when you take a look at these two programs from the 8-man perspective historically. Two programs that have had a lot of success. Bruning Davenport, Shickley, of course, that goes back to their original days where they were just Bruning Davenport and Shickley, and now combined to the powerhouse that is BDS. And then always a fun atmosphere, always a good environment over there at the home of the Blue Devils in Kennesaw. And should be a fun one Friday night as the 8-man tour rolls along on Extreme Sports 2. Love those 8-man games and a lot of fun.
Week number 3 for high school. It'll be week number 2 for the NFL. And the college ranks, it'll be week number 3 for most teams. So getting into the midst of the sports season for the fall, Hastings College will have another home game again on Saturday. Briar Cliff going to be in town, a team out of Sioux City. So the Chargers and the Broncos, that'll be a Saturday afternoon game at Lloyd Wilson Field. 1 o'clock start on Saturday. Pregame show on Extreme Sports will be at 12 o'clock noon as we try to get the Broncos a win this weekend.
I know it, but you go back to week 2. Obviously, Northwestern coming in as the second-ranked team in the nation. We kind of knew that that's what that offense had the capability of doing. What do you see from Bronco football? Do you see a stride next week in the right direction with a Briarcliff team coming into town?
Briarcliff is always a team that causes us problems, and probably more so when we play up in Sioux City than in Hastings, but we have taken some good teams up to Sioux City and have struggled or lost to Briarcliff. Now then, when they play down here, we seem to dominate. It's a team that is usually toward the bottom of the standings in the Great Plains Athletic Conference, but we have right now we have no room to talk. We're 0-2 as well, so we're just having a tough time on offense right now. Carson Kolachek, the quarterback for the Broncos, is off to a terrible start. He looked so good during the preseason workouts that everybody was all hyped up and ready to go. He is off to a terrible start. He's had 5 interceptions, I think, in 2 games. The first game that we had against Peru State, he threw for 72 yards. Last week wasn't much better, just over 100. So we got to get our offense cranked up, and I'm sure Matt may have some new guys in the lineup here this week. We'll see what happens with the Hastings. But, yeah, we got to find some offense.
A few different wrinkles in the playbook. We'll see if we go back to some rolls of the dice on the depth chart and maybe get some fresh faces in there. But, yeah, that's kind of one of the things. You start off 0-2 and you start to take a look down that depth chart and maybe play that game of who's next and who wants to come up and make some big plays for you. So hope for the best for the Broncos this weekend at Lloyd Wilson Field. And I tell you what, I've just heard, and this is the feather in the cap to everybody over at Hastings College and kind of putting on that atmosphere over at Lloyd Wilson Field. I have heard more positive things, more excitement from fans that have come in after the game wraps up over to my establishment, and they're telling me that this tailgate atmosphere that they've got going on, and these tailgate parties, and what they're doing over on the third floor over at Lloyd Wilson Field, everything's been really well received from Bronco fans that have been in attendance, and so hopefully that keeps going. But feather in the cap, kudos to you guys. You're putting on a fun atmosphere. Hopefully more and more Broncos fans start to descend upon Lloyd Wilson Field and maybe get that place to get some home field advantage come this Saturday against the Chargers.
Oh, we know the guy will try to get on the show here in the next week or so, and that's the athletic director for Hastings, and Chris Clemens. We'll get him on the show here and chat about what's going on and exactly what you were talking about. So we'll sneak him on the show. He's always gracious with his time. So
absolutely.
Anything else going on this week that we need to look forward to? Anything else going on today that I missed?
I think we've covered all the bases. I think first through home, we got through another show. So I'll be working behind the scenes here. It's Tuesday's my off day. We're gonna put up the feet. We're gonna relax for a little bit, and then we'll get back to work and gonna find some guests here for the upcoming week. And if you're listening or viewing on the show and you have an idea of a guest that might be good for us to bring on the program, this is your guys' show as well. We want to involve you, the listener, you, the viewer. That's the beauty of it. You guys can kind of direct us and say, hey, why not have a conversation about these? All ideas are under the table. We'll take all into consideration. So feed us with some suggestions, and a big thank you, Shaner, who makes a Facebook comment. You guys are looking good. I don't know if that was brown-nosing or not, but we appreciate the feedback on the social media platforms, and looking forward to a fun show tomorrow, Mike.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Huddle Up on Extreme Sports, Central Nebraska's new home for sports. Join us every weekday morning from 7 until 8 on Extreme Sports.
Bands to not